Now you're all very welcome to the Racing Room. It's Ronan Groom, your presenter this week, and with me to discuss all of the biggest talking points in the racing and gambling industries is the three wise men, Anthony Kaminskis, Harry Stewart Moore, and Tony Calvin. So the Cheltenham Festival has just been and gone, and already the attention is turning towards Aintree, and this was particularly felt during the week, lads, when Simon Barker, the Aintree assistant groundsman, he tweeted a picture of one of their fences, and it looked more like a glorified hurdle, I think, and it's got caught quite a lot of traction. Did you catch this, Tony? And what did you make of
Yeah,
it?
I did double check before we come on air, and it sounds like it's the 11th or the 12th fence, and it sounded like it was completed. And the poor guy thought he was just being kind of like helpful and just saying, we're getting there with the fences, preparation, etc. And everyone just laughed at the size of the fences. It might have been a bad angle, but it did look like a fixed brush hurdle. So, and everyone was saying, yeah, demise of the race, different, different complexion, etc. So, yeah, thought he was being helpful, but as ever, X brought him down to ground.
I was, that market they have, or they used to have every year of how many runners get over the first in the race.
Yes.
I was just thinking before we came on, what price all of the racing room panelists get over that fence, and I was thinking probably odds on, to be honest, because it's that small for one. But AK quite long, kind of a beam pole structure could just step over that. I think I
No,
could
I
probably just dive over it, and Tony, you could throw Harry over it,
I think
and
I'd have to be thrown or come up with some legal route round it, I think.
kind of bulldoze through it as well. Like, and I think that would probably quantify. That'd be good style for the new national as well when you just go through the fences instead.
Yeah, he's got Harry's got a bit of a what was that horse called? Catch it vibe about him. You could see him just
Oh
being
yeah.
just over the
I'm more of
hurdle.
a Tiger Roll. Give him a Tiger Roll.
Yeah,
Oh,
exactly. Yeah, I
yeah,
think that's much more apt.
Jesus,
Right.
Ronan, he's all guns blazing, isn't he? So far, he's dressed like a Bond villain with that turtleneck, and now he's acting like one as well. Just brilliant. So, fair play, Ron.
Oh yeah, I'm invigorated by my engagement with people tweeting our podcast during the week. So this is the new me. I'm standing up to having a bit of a go back at people as well. So hopefully we get a bit more comment on the podcast this week, but we'll see. We will deal with a bit of Cheltenham wash up, as Tony Calvin has said here, and just deal with the whip bands, which are coming out like confetti last week. I'll give you a bit of detail on this. So Gavin Sheehan and JJ Slevin both had Grade 1 winners at Cheltenham last week. Both got 14-day suspensions and will miss some of Aintree's Grand National meeting. Um, the Obviously, Sheehan was on Johnny's Jury in the Albert Bartlett, and JJ was on Home by the Lee in the Stairs Hurdle. Uh, Used the whip 9 times, two more than allowed from turning into the home straight. Charlie Dyche was another one who got a 14-day ban, which will rule him out the first 2 days of the fixture. Patrick Mullins and Shane Cotter were both given 8-day suspensions, found to have used the whip 8 times, one above the permitted level, when fighting out the finish in the Kim Muir. So both of those riders will miss the Fox Hunters Open Hunter Chase at the Aintree meeting as well, which would probably be a big deal for them, you suggest. So, what do we make of this, Tony? Do you want to come in there on this? It's getting a bit silly now, isn't it? These big bans for jockeys coming out the biggest meeting of all.
Yeah, well, it's going to have to be a tipping point somewhere here, isn't there? I mean, there is a reason why they delay these to the whip review committee on the Tuesday and don't hand them out on the day, because if these were handed out on the day, we're dealing with four winners here, aren't we? And Charlie Deutsch on Martata went two over and won by a nose. You can see why a lot of people would be up in arms about this if it was on the day. But the reason why these bans were introduced, well, one of them was to stop this win at all costs attitude, and it's just not a good look, is it, when you got horses winning by the smallest margins and the jockeys going one or two over. I think we all agree that, well, the whip is a very contentious kind of like issue, isn't it? But it's just a terrible look when you've got so many whip bans, and that's without all the 1 or 2 day bans we got for the messes at the start, etc. It's yeah, it's entirely unsatisfactory, isn't it?
Yeah, indeed. When the penalty doesn't really stop people from doing it at the biggest meetings, I guess you're in a tough place. But I think we've dealt with that quite a few times on the podcast before. I'll just read you out quickly. It's just a bit more fallout from the festival. Obviously, the Nico de Boinville and Declan Queally situation that has not been proven by the BHA, and just quickly read you out a bit of what they concluded. So it said it's understood and accepted that strong language was used by de Boinville at the start and directed towards Mr. Queally. It was also stated that number riders were also verbally expressing their frustration at the start away from the incident being inquired into. There was no audio evidence or verbal evidence given from any party during the course of the inquiry to corroborate that any language was used of a racist nature. While Quealy's complaint was not upheld, Boinville was reminded of his obligations and expectations to ensure he behaves in a professional manner, and that this includes when pressure is heightened at the start of high-profile fixtures. So it seems like that story is going to conclude there. Tony, take us through the racing review, and then we get stuck into the topics.
Yeah. Let's just note down the time. Right. Yeah, I'll fly through these. If anybody wants to say anything about any of these, please feel free to chip in. Nothing on the track really. Want to mention very low key weekend. Though Aidan O'Brien had a treble at Naas on Sunday. But obviously we've got Constitution Hill running this week. I've just checked on the confirmations. With 7 minutes to go, and he's due to face 7 rivals at Kempton on Wednesday night. Though his main form rival, Sea of Kings, is the one not currently confirmed. So the anti-post betting on that race, it's nobody would have struck a bit anyway. Was 2-9 Constitution Hill and 3-1 Sea of Kings, the horse that's not been declared. So I think we're probably looking at a
We're looking at a body tree race, I think.
yeah, you'll be interested in that for sure. Yeah, it looks to be his to lose, even though he's got a £7 penalty. Disappointing that the main form rival's not there at the moment, but still 6 minutes to go. Main news story of the week was Dan Skelton surpassing the £4 million prize money barrier on Saturday. As of Monday morning, he's had 168 winners from 921 runners at a strike rate of 18% and 4,020 grand's worth of winning prize money. Um, to some, obviously, he's a brilliant trainer and he splits opinion about the way he campaigns his handicappers. But to put that into context about and it is a kind of like uh, it is a kind of like a blanket approach. I mean, he's had 921 runners. To put that into context, Nichols has only had 397 and Henderson only 312. So he's had, nearly 3 times as many runners as Henderson, which is staggering. I mean, he's got so many horses in his yards and satellite yards, it's untrue, but he certainly maximised their potential, that's for sure. So well done him. Some deaths to sadly report. Former Sport and Life editor Monty Court died at 97. Miriam Frankham died at the age of 72. We should also mention the death of bookmaker stroke and he was also involved in racehorse politics. Christopher Hudson, who stood as George Yates, he died. So the on-course layer there, give him a name check. Hugo Palmer took over as president of the NTF last week. Having done some work with Hugo Palmer before, and I think he's going to spice it up a bit, even if it doesn't need spicing up any further. So yeah, Hugo Palmer's taken over there. The flats season started a proper last Monday with Aidan O'Brien's first press day. And surprise, surprise, 2,000 guineas favourite Albert Einstein is the quickest he has ever had, etc., etc. So that's now the 2,000 guineas favourite, even though everyone thinks it might end up a sprinter. At the other end of the scale, Royal Pagaille has retired. The dual Betfair Chase winners retired at the age of 12. So yeah, that was a stalwart of the ch staying chases in recent years. Chester have done a deal with the New York Racing Association, just a contra deal there about the horses being qualified for each of various contacts of the tracks. And the last thing I picked up on late last night was Richard Fahey will be joined by his son Peter on the licence at Mustley Bank in time for the upcoming turf season. So join the likes of the Easterby's, etc. So yeah, that was the racing view. Very, very low key racing weekend and racing week last week, but plenty taking place off the track.
Very good, Tony. Thank you very much for that. We'll deal with our first topic, lads. The William Hill story, which is it seems like quite a big story and has been played as such, but we're suggesting that it might even be a little underplayed. I'll give you some facts here, and I'll bring you in, Harry, if you don't mind. Have first dibs. William Hill have asked customers to return funds erroneously credited their accounts by a malfunction to one of its online casino games. Posts on social media show customers with tens of thousands of pounds credited to their betting accounts after playing the bookmaker's jackpot drop game, with at least one punter believed to have received a six-figure payout. However, accounts were later locked or the amounts manually readjusted after William Hill determined that the sums credited to the customers were caused by an error in how the game was operating. These actions came too late in the case of some William Hill users who had withdrawn the amounts that had arrived in their accounts, leading to the bookmaker sending emails to request the return of the money. Within its terms and conditions, William Hill outlines that in instances of malfunctions or errors, it is able to void transactions or take corrective measures on account balances and funds paid out as a consequence. Uh, Best of luck to them, Harry. I'd suggest here in getting punters to return money. Or how does this kind of work out legally for them, or do they have any hope at all?
Well, they have some hope. It is a complete mess. It's the statement. I was texting you last night, all of you, because I was getting a bit confused as to what exactly had gone on here. Because the statement says money erroneously credited to accounts, which sounded like it was like just a complete mistake. That money was just sent to the accounts of people who it shouldn't have been sent to. But it does sound slightly different. It sounds as though these people have played this game and won it, and then were led to believe that they'd won large sums of money. And the bit I'm finding slightly confusing, and it may be the nature of the game, is there's an implication that some of these people didn't realize they'd won all this money and it was suddenly, pinged into their accounts. But if you haven't played the game at all and the money just arrives in your account, I don't think you've got much of a legal chance of holding on to it because you've never entered into a contract, you've never played the game. If they've played the game and won, then the case law suggests that it is going to come down very much to the terms and conditions of William Hill and how well they're drafted and whether they cover this eventuality and whether they're not drafted too wide. So people think, oh, well, the answer to make sure it covers every eventuality is to make it a really broad term. But that doesn't work either because the courts don't like, in consumer contracts, particularly terms that just sort of basically allow you to do whatever you want. So it's going to be a real test for the William Hill terms and conditions. On this kind of mistake, bookmakers don't have a great record. There was the case of the lady who was a gardener who won a casino game against on Paddy Power, and it was in two phases, I think, this game, and she went through phase one and she went through phase two, and a screen came up saying you've won the £1 million annual jackpot or something. And what's interesting about that case is that she hadn't actually won it. She had won, according to its internal systems, she had won the monthly jackpot. So Paddy Power dipped into her, I think, dipped into her balance and reduced it from £1 million to about 25 grand. And she sued, and the courts found in her favour and said no, Paddy Power were relying on a mistake in the software, and the court saying sorry, your terms and conditions are not suitable for this. And one of the areas is AK's favourite area is that the relevant terms weren't sufficiently drawn to her attention. So I should think there are some drafters of William Hill's terms and conditions who are feeling quite nervous at the moment about exactly whether their drafting is going to get them out of this. But then, of course, there's the practical difficulty of getting money out of people who have already withdrawn and have, figuratively headed for the hills. That is going to be difficult. If it's a genuine mistake, if it's just sort of, that systems went mad and sent money all over the place, then you'd think the banking system might step in to help. But that's not what's happened here. I don't think they can rely on banks to undo transactions because on the face of things, these people have been paid the money and are entitled to it. I think William Hill have to establish why they're not entitled to it.
Anyone else want to come in there on this story, AK or Tony?
No, I'd imagine it's a bit of a disaster internally. It's one of those ones where you just can't win externally as well because people just assume they've won malfunction or no malfunction as well. So, if it's paid, like Harry says, I think if a game is paying everybody out in massive sums of money, I think you can quite fairly assume something has gone wrong there from a tech point of view. Um, but in the court of public opinion, I don't think they'll win that one anyway. Um, it's
But just to emphasize, them getting it wrong is not going to get them out of it. It's whether they have made it clear that getting it wrong in this way entitles them to undo the bets. Obviously, it does look like something has gone badly wrong, but it is perfectly possible that courts will take the same view they did in the case of the Gardner and Paddy Power, which is, well, yeah, it went wrong, but tough.
It's the Racing Post. We're talking about tens of thousands. Do we think it's probably a bit more punchy than that? And also there has been
Well, we'll
some.
never know because no one's sticking their hands up to say
well,
that they've.
I think the number was seven figures plus. But I don't know if that's the withdrawn number. I assume it's not. I think the malfunction resulted in seven-figure losses or additions to people's balances. But whether those amounts were withdrawn, I'm not sure. I'd say it was somewhere less on the withdrawal amount, but probably not ideal to happen in and around the day that Bally's were going to bid for your whole parent company. It's probably a bit of a disaster all around.
The other
But there
interesting
was
thing
some
is that they've offered 11% to some
yes.
of them.
Where would that number have come from, by the way?
Yeah, I don't know.
Is that the
Exactly what I
true
was
number that
wondering.
should have been paid out? Or like it's hard to know, isn't it? Where would you pick that from?
Yeah, 11% is an odd one, and I think didn't I read that it was you also had to sign essentially a settlement in return for your 11%. So yeah, uh, yeah,
What would Harry Stewart Moore be advising punters to do there?
oh, punters to do there. I listen. You got to go back to the terms and conditions, I'm afraid, and I haven't pored over those William Hill ones.
Good
Um,
dodge, good dodge.
but yeah, as I say, I think it's all going to come down to terms and conditions. If what we think has happened, which is just that a game has paid out far too much, which was legitimately played, then it's just going to come down to terms and conditions. I think as
Okay.
as as interpreted through the prism of consumer law.
Okay, well, we'll see how that goes. An absolute massive headache, whatever way you weigh it up
Yeah,
for William Hill to see how they go about that. Move on to a dreadful story, really, in the greyhound racing industry, where Wales has become the first nation in the UK to ban the sport, and we're closely followed by Scotland later last week. So members of the Senate backed a bill on Tuesday to ban racing across the country, with supporters saying the decision will protect the animals. 39 MS voted to bring in the ban, with 10 against and 2 abstentions. The prohibition of racing will come into effect between 1st of April 2027 and 1st of April 2030. Scotland followed Wales to become the second UK country to ban greyhound racing in just over 24 hours as MSPs backed a bill to end the sport. The Greyhound Racing Offences Scotland Bill, supported by 70 votes to 27 at stage 3 with 19 absentations, will make it an offence to operate a racing track for greyhounds and for a dog owner to race their animal on one. So how significant is this, Harry? Do we think? I'd imagine fairly significant.
Yeah, I'm more equivocal on this than I was. I think I thought previously that I could see why racing didn't particularly want to tie itself to the future of greyhound racing, and I can still see that there is an argument on that, but I'm sort of stuck in the middle on this. I don't really know if the answer is for racing to stand shoulder to shoulder with greyhound racing, and on the basis that it's the thin end of the wedge, and they're coming for us next, or whether it should recognize, which I think is true, which is that greyhound racing has more problems socially than with the social license than horse racing does, and try and differentiate itself. And I don't know the answer to this one. I think both are legitimate arguments. I think most of the people listening will be of the because they're likely to be fairly hardcore fans and observers of these kind of sports, are going to take the view that that horse racing should sort of support greyhound racing so far as it can. In an ideal world, I think that's right. But I can still see why there is a nervousness in horse racing about being perceived as the same or as in terms of the social license, the same as greyhound racing.
It's interesting that one of the comments there was it makes it an offence to operate a racing track for greyhounds, which I assumed would be there as part of this, but also for a dog owner to raise their animal on one. How does that affect dog owners on the borders in Scotland racing at Newcastle Dog Track, for example? I don't know.
Mm.
Like these are very the second, like again, it's what happens. I think they're very clever, the antis, in the picking holes where there are holes to be picked. Um, but then the bigger prize is further down the line and is probably getting closer and closer. Um, these are it's quite symbolic in a way. How many grain tracks are there in Wales? There's one, the Valley. It opened a couple of years ago, reopened a couple of years ago. How many grain tracks are there in Scotland? My understanding now there's none.
None,
They
apparently. Yeah.
used to race at Shawfield. I had a bitch that finished second in the Scottish Grain Derby back in the day. Um, but they don't race in Scotland as well. So they've got quite a lot of traction here for one grain track that opened 2 years ago, maybe, and isn't that important. The big prizes are probably Ireland and England from a grain perspective, where all the tracks are essentially. I'd be shocked if anything ever happened in Ireland because there's a deeper understanding of the importance of horse racing and grain racing among politicians. It's kind of a split between a rural and a town type situation in Ireland, and the TDs in Ireland are very in line with the wishes of the constituents or whatever the word is over here. How important these facilities are to the local population. So I have less concern there. Maybe less so in England with the quality of politician at present. But yeah, it's a little bit symbolic, but it's also just the prize at the end of the tunnel comes nearer, I think.
Yeah, I want to flag up. Vaughan Lewis was on Luck on Sunday yesterday on this topic. He was on there for about best part of 15 minutes, and he spoke very, very eloquently on this. So if you want to go and have a listen to that, he's go on the Racing TV website. I think he was about 103 minutes in. If you want to go and have a look on their playback option, which is free for all, I believe. He was very, very good on this. I alerted Jonathan Kay to that, and he thought it was a superb kind of like analysis of the situation. Jonathan is
Sorry, Tony. What was the name of the dog the breed that he suggested that was basically bred and suffers all its life? I thought it was a very good point.
English pit bull, would it be?
And it's like significantly more than the greyhound population as well. It's a very good point, and there's obviously nothing said about that.
Yeah, they
But yeah, I
basically.
agree with you. The whole piece was very good.
Yeah, I mean the he made the point about the pit bull is bred, and it's kind of like bred to kind of like to suffer the way they do this, but it's still far more kind of like.
But I think that I watched part of that, Tony. It was very good. And the problem with these arguments is that you're dealing with decision makers, politicians who think that they are doing what large groups of society want them to do, who are never going to delve this deep into the subject to have a view this educated. So to defeat these arguments, you need something much broader brush
You
and
need a
much
populist
more
argument.
appealing. Yeah, you
Yeah.
need being able to poke holes in the logic of it. It's fairly easy because it doesn't make any sense. But it's not going to work. And I think there's something that gambling and racing need to work out as well, is that you need simple messaging that is delivered very well. And it's something that again, everyone's being outmaneuvered by the
I
antis
think
on.
I think one of the things that Vaughan was trying to get across is that I think racing should have stood by greyhounds more in the statements they made on this. And
Hmm.
having spoken to Jonathan, I mean, he actually kind of referenced an "I'm all right, Jack," kind of like approach by the BHA when all this greyhound issue came up. Um, but yeah, it's a difficult one. But as Vaughan also said, it's just all about the optics with these
Yeah,
politicians.
it
And
is.
if that kind of like lack of understanding transfers from greyhounds to horse racing, then it's obviously a very worrying sign. I mean, as Mark Johnston, the former trainer, has said before, the amount of injuries and the amount of fatalities in horse racing is far more than greyhounds. Now, you can argue about what metrics you're using there. Obviously, far more horses in training, etc. But if you do get MPs and politicians who are drawn into this without having a decent kind of understanding of the of the options here and the actual realities.
I just
it has to be a worry of sorts for horse racing, albeit.
it definitely has to be worrying, a worry of sorts. But again, I just go back to this point that I think one of the most interesting things in recent years about the way the world works was the post office scandal, which has been going on for a very long time and was rumbling on fairly quietly in the newspapers for a number of years. People were aware of it, and then ITV made a three-part drama of it over Christmas, and it exploded, and it became what it is now. That is the way the world now works. Now, I'm not suggesting that we're going to be able to get a three-part drama on the social benefits of greyhound racing on ITV at Christmas, but it's the way people need to think with these things now, is just sort of endlessly playing a responsive game to people who are basically on a kind of post-truth crusade is doesn't work.
Agree.
Yeah. Let's do the story, the Tattersalls story, cause for concern from Tattersalls amid the 9.5% drop in the full crop in Britain and Ireland last year. So falling full crops in Britain and Ireland have been identified for the first time by Tattersalls as a major risk factor for the business in the latest sign of growing concern at the ongoing drop-off in horses being bred to race. Figures published last year by Weatherby's showed a 9.5% drop in the number of foals born in Britain and Ireland during 2025, the most significant drop year on year for more than a decade. In its latest accounts published on Companies House covering the year ending June 30th, 2025, Tattersalls directors spelled out what they perceived to be the principal risks and uncertainties for the company, which included foal crop for the first time. I won't read the rest of it. It's just obviously quite buoyant results elsewhere for Tattersalls. But AK, do you want to come in here on this? So we talked about this before, but obviously a major sales company here now flagging this in a big way, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. it's worrying for horse racing, I think, just in general. Like I don't look at horse racing day to day as much. I actually just scanned the cards today, mainly because there was not much sport on today. And I look at the three meetings on today, and I'm like, geez, it doesn't surprise me that turnover on this stuff is falling. Like it's pretty poor fare today from a horse racing perspective on a day where there's literally no other sport on. But I think just from a Tattersalls point of view, whenever everyone goes cap in hand and people have got their hand out for money, it tends to be towards bookmakers and sales companies like Tattersalls tend to be missing from that conversation. And they seem to be doing pretty well from what I can see.
It's the actual numbers there. I mean, a near 10% drop at a time when racing fixtures are static, and everyone agrees that there's far too much racing. I mean, you're only looking at 2 or 3 years down the line, year on year, before this becomes a major issue with the funding of the sport. I mean, where field sizes are crucial. Um, we are sleepwalking into
But I think
disastrous
I
territory.
think I think the other thing it shows you is that this idea that bloodstock industry is the same as horse racing is wrong, and that money in bloodstock is plainly not finding its way into the sport. Because how is Tattersalls is still considered able to? I think it's still got huge profits this year, despite this warning. And the foal crop's reducing by 10%. Well, surely the only reason for that is that the money that is sloshing around in at the top end of bloodstock is not going back into horse racing.
Yeah, it's yeah. I mean, obviously you've got that, and you've got agents. They're taking out what between
Yeah,
10 to 15%.
Land Rovers, Gilets, flights to Dubai.
It's
Well, not at the moment, but yeah, but generally, yeah.
Coming on to that.
yeah,
Oh,
we'll
yeah,
come on
yeah.
to that. But
It's
yeah, it just seemed to be sleepwalking, don't it? Sleepwalking into the abyss.
Um, yeah, okay. Well, we'll leave that one there. We'll do this next point a bit quicker because I do want to give a bit of time to this Dubai World Cup chat, which is our next point after this one. But Tony, I'll let you take this. As the Jockey Club announced a deal with catering and events giant Compass. It's aiming to revolutionize the racecourse experience. This deal worth £100 million. This came out basically straight after the podcast we recorded last week. So the Jockey Club has unveiled details of a deal with its catering partner Compass, which will unlock £100 million in funds for the group to invest in the racecourse experience at both Cheltenham and Aintree, as well as underwriting its plans for revitalising Epsom. Under the arrangement, Levy, the sports and entertainment arm of the Compass Group in Ireland, has signed an exclusive 20-year deal, which the two groups branded an evolution of their existing partnership, designed to revolutionise the spectator experience across UK racecourses. Do you want to come in here, Tony, on this point?
evolution, not
Because
revolution.
Yeah.
What's that from? Go on.
But
It's
the
Alan Partridge.
Yeah, evolve, not revolve.
What you don't want is another Chris Evans. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
the yeah, obviously it sounds like a very good deal for the Jockey Club, getting a lot of money up front. I think that 100 million, I think it's there's 5 payments of 20 million in the next 5 years, which obviously gives them a lot of money to do what they want to do at the three big tracks. I mean, if I was Sandown, I would probably be a bit worried that they weren't directly kind of like named in the courses that are going to be the beneficiary of this. But whatever way, obviously the devil in the detail. We don't know exactly what's going to go on here. But my main thought is if Compass are paying £100 million to the Jockey Club, including a lot of money up front, who do you think, where do you think they're gonna try and make their money back on that? Racegoers, prices. I haven't seen that really kind of like asked of the situation. And it's all right for the Jockey Club for saying, we've got this £100 million, everything we get, we invest into racing. Where do you think Compass are going to look to make that £100 million money back? You know,
Handsome, yeah.
Your burger's going to be 15 quid, not 12 quid at Epsom. That's my main worry is that the race goer is going to be paying for this.
Oh,
Uh,
100%. We know it at Cheltenham from speaking to the vendors that you can't pay cash because they want to track everything. So every single transaction has to be on the card. You couldn't buy a coffee with pound coins at Cheltenham. They have to track every transaction because the racecourse was taking 90, I think it was 19% of every transaction. So this is where the spiraling costs are. The racecourse are taking 19% off the vendors. Vendors want to make money on what they're doing. So they're either raising prices, cutting the quality of ingredients, or both. Um, yeah, I think it's not really the big positive it's being sold as, is it? Like
uh,
might
that's
give
it.
you like at some point I just think there's tipping points in all this, and people are fairly annoyed with the quality of food and the offering and tracks at the moment. And doing a deal like this, will the offering change for the average race go? I'm not sure, but the prices probably will. The prices are probably going up.
You'd hope that the Jockey Club have got some assurances, but when they're being given £100 million, the person giving the £100 million saying, I can't have my hands tied about what I do commercially and financially after this deal is struck. So that would be that was my one coming across it from a cynical point of view, clearly. But that's my one area where I just thought, where they're gonna try and make their money here, the race
I
car.
mean, there's a possibility, isn't there, that they think that they've gone to a jockey club meeting, jockey club track meeting, and thought we can do this an awful lot better, and that the prices won't go up. That they just think that there is an opportunity there that's being not properly exploited. Isn't that a possibility?
Well, I suppose you could streamline it, or maybe they can take over the all the existing pitches
Well,
if
I mean, look, I mean, sometimes
possible.
the staff are horrific, aren't they? Sometimes that's something that you can at some tracks, at some meetings, and the facilities, and you can be keen. If you're an expert in these matters and you know how consumers work in these situations, then presumably you're able to make it more efficient and find value. Where, yeah, I listen. Maybe prices will go up, but I'm just sort of looking at it from another point of view, which is that that they might think that they can provide a better experience and make their money on the back
Well,
of
it's
that.
one thing to know from what I got from reading it, whether it's true or not, is it's an existing partnership.
Yes.
Mm.
It's an existing partnership already. So you'd imagine that Compass have worked out where they can make more money. I don't know if the current partnership
Yeah.
encompasses all the courses or not, or it's some, or um, I'd imagine they've done a fair case study of where they can
Yes.
make sure they get their money back. But it says a
Exactly.
20-year partnership as well.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I mean, I suppose what I'm thinking is that if I was wandering around some of these meetings, I wouldn't think, oh, I know how these are people crying out to pay 3 quid more on their burger. These are people crying out to pay 2 quid more on a pint of Guinness. It doesn't seem to me that that is a very obvious area for growth, particularly given the amount of time we spend complaining about the pints of Guinness, a pint of Guinness at the Cheltenham, for example. So yeah, anyway, we'll see.
Very good. Yeah, so let's do this Dubai World Cup. Um, the meeting going ahead this week. Obviously, big meeting on the international stage, and they're deciding to go ahead with it or kick on it. Do you want to start here, Tony, or come in? And I will. I'll give a bit of this as well because I was talking to my brother who lives out there and gave me a kind of good summary of what's the actual situation is like out there.
Yeah. Obviously, everyone thought it was in severe doubt 3 weeks ago, 3 or 4 weeks ago when it all kicked off. Um, and if anything, it's escalated dramatically, including in the last few days. So the idea that the Dubai World Cup meeting is going to go ahead on Saturday, it staggers me, to be perfectly honest with you, considering what we're seeing. And obviously, we're not probably not seeing as what is actually going on there, because anybody who posts pictures of incoming missiles, etc.,
Mm,
gets banged up. So we're not probably seeing the reality of that. Now, I would imagine with the systems they got in place, like I said, everyone's seeing they are intercepting the vast majority of what's going on. But we have seen pictures of the airport being struck. Um, and obviously, Sheikh Mohammed's probably um, going to be present at Maidan on Saturday. It's a well publicized meeting. Everyone in the world knows where it is. It's kind of, I just feel sorry for the people. I just hope the likes of the racing TV people that are over there full time, and obviously people going over there for me, I just hope they've been given the option of not going.
mm.
Um, it just, it's just a
So can you
race.
get in and out? Can you get in and out at the moment? I'm not even. I don't even know.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
can.
Yeah, yeah.
Ronan might have some better idea about that, but there's stories going just this morning that you got planes turning up with only barely 50 people on them.
I was going to say you'd have to have some balls to go on a plane. I don't like flying at the best of times. There's not a hope I'd go
You
anywhere near
might
there on a plane.
you might have a situation where the meeting's going ahead, and you might just get the air raid signs going on, in the middle of it. It
There
just
was a flight
seems,
from Dublin. There was a flight from Dublin last week that someone sent to me that was on some flight tracker thing that literally got unbelievably close to Dubai and turned around and went back to Dublin.
yeah. There was some,
Seriously,
Yeah, it was,
yeah, there
I
was.
don't know how they did it
bloody
from a
hell.
fuel perspective, but I don't know if they're overstocking on fuel for instances like that.
I
But it
know.
literally got within half an hour of Dubai and then went back. Man, some guy said he woke up and he was back
Yeah,
in.
it was a guy, some guy. I remember, I can't remember. Carl
Yeah.
Brophy. He just said said he took off. He just thought he was just setting his alarm. Woke up about a half hour ago, and he was like coming back into Dublin again. Turned around halfway. It's it's absolutely bloody. It just seems madness. It's just absolutely madness.
Reminds me of I don't know if you're Father Ted fans, but when Father Jack wakes up out of his drunken slumber and he's just shouts out, "Don't tell me I'm still on that feckin' island." Your man waking up back in Dublin. But the flights have been going in and out because my brother literally came home for a wedding last weekend. He was so keen to get back for it and he was booking flights and he spent so much money to get back. And he has to come home again for the stag I've organised for him in 2 weeks' time as well, and he's sweating that as well. But he has full intention to do so. But I was just asking about this whole kind of situation or how things are going out there, and he basically said what you might imagine. The place is just a strange place at the moment. Like all the schools are closed. His missus is a teacher. She works from home. All the teachers are told they can work from home if they want to leave the country and go back to where a lot of teachers over there from Britain, Ireland, they can do so and work from home. Like he works in the kind of construction industry. They go out to a lot of sites and stuff, and a lot of the people in his that he works with don't want to do that. Don't want to be going out and about or whatever. I was just saying the roads are obviously significantly more quiet, but not too dissimilar to COVID, like when tourism in and out of the country. And obviously you have the Grand Prix in Saudi and Bahrain have been cancelled. Um, he's seen horses have been arriving this week and they've been getting police escorts like from the airport. Like it's just so weird. And I was at the Dubai World Cup this time last year, and the big part of it, the social thing, is the fireworks show that happens after the race. It's insane, and it's a big homage to Sheikh Mohammed. Like, and this it's absolutely like it is something incredible and a big attraction for the people to go there. But like, I don't know, are they going to have the fireworks show? Like that sounds completely tone deaf if they went ahead with that. Like, and loud bangs and big flashes in the air, and
Yeah,
like
and
there's
presumably
fucking
you don't have.
actual,
Mm,
do you know what I mean? Like actual bangs
yeah.
going off nearby. Like, not, and my brother was saying, people are complaining about people who have like zooped up cars, fast cars making noise going down like a neighborhood that's scaring people, thinking that there's a bomb outside or
Oh yeah,
something
with their
going off. Do you
spoilers,
know?
whatever you call them. Yeah,
But yet
yeah.
we could potentially have this massive fireworks show paying homage to Sheikh Mohammed going on down at the race course. It just feels so weird. Feels so strange that it could something like that could go ahead, but
It does. I mean,
that's the plan.
they've been from day one very keen to promote a business as usual idea in Dubai, haven't they? I think that is perhaps the reason for all this, and you just hope that they're right, that it's safe.
So you were saying it's torrential rain there this morning.
Yeah, that's the other thing. Yeah, absolutely bucketing down, and when it rains out there, my brother was also saying they're not built for. It's like when it snows in Ireland, everything breaks and people can't do anything. But the rain out there is substantial, and roads are flooding, and I'm sure that's going to have its problems for the meeting as well. I don't know if that lasts until Saturday, but he's saying it's just bucketing rain now in the forecast for the week. So yeah, interesting to see how it all plays out. Okay, lads, we leave that there and we do our next topic, which is calls for affordability plans to be rethought amid fears of 120,000 will face checks. So the government has been asked to tell the Gambling Commission to pause and review its plans to introduce so-called frictionless affordability checks, which could be signed off in May. The Betting and Gaming Council has claimed the checks, termed as financial risk assessments by the industry regulator, will not work, and that thousands of punters will still need to produce documentation in order to continue betting. It added that that will mean 120,000 racing punters could be asked to submit personal financial documents to prove they can afford to bet. Meanwhile, the BHA raised the prospect that the illegal betting market could be fueled by the new system and asked both the government and the regulator whether now is the time to introduce it. AK, do you want to come in here on this one?
Yeah, you'd I still like to see the BGC being a lot stronger in the words on some of the stuff. It's the, everything is ripe for the black market at the moment, unfortunately. And you obviously mentioned the growth there and the exponential growth there. I just know from myself, from my own site, just when you request documents from customers, most do not comply and their accounts are just suspended. And I think just the knock-on effect of that is obviously we talk about the black market, but there's actually other knock-on effects. There's more knock-on effects like bookmakers just don't massively invest in customer service anymore because why would you? Like most customers are just bouncing around different brands. Brand loyalty is almost dead. Um, I do think it would surprise people how not very price sensitive the majority of people are. So when you don't particularly care about price, you care about customer service, you might go somewhere. And that's where we try and have our little niche. But we see send an email to some bigger bookmakers, we'll try and reply to you. You get an auto reply, we'll try and reply in 48 to 72 hours. Like customer service is one of the knock-on effects of this has gone fairly non-existent in the UK gambling market because why would you invest in it? Because the life cycle of active customers is so decreased these days. I don't like that's one thing I never see anybody talk about the life cycle of an active customer. We talk about bookmakers' profits, we talk about turnover, we talk about various different things. The life cycle of a customer is unbelievably short now because they just get moved on for one reason or another. Very rarely from a trading perspective, in my opinion. It's usually from a hit some limit and we need to talk to you. And I don't want to talk to my bookmaker on the phone. I don't want to send you this via email. So the life cycle of customers is fairly non-existent, which, like I said, the knock-on effect of that is you don't really invest in things that improve the life cycle of customers because you're going to lose them anyway. It's a fairly pathetic market we've got here at the moment, where there's a lot of churn and bookmakers that operate churn models are probably doing okay, just churning through more and more customers, um, until they run out. Essentially, and I just think the knock-on effect of all this stuff is just the black market. They get there eventually. And I saw the BGC comments around 60 million will be bet on Cheltenham on the black market. I'd say I'd say I could make a few phone calls and find about 10 million of that myself. Like it's absolutely it's madness. Like it's madness. The black market's being underrepresented constantly. 60 million, I'd say 60 million in the first hour. It's absolutely off the charts, the black market. I know there's a story about it this week. Um, it's just worrying, I think, just for the legal market. I think it's all these people that have invented all this stuff to reduce gambling harm. We're probably 10 years into this stuff now, and I haven't seen a single gambling harm metric that's gone down. I haven't seen any changes to barely any changes in what anyone's done from a tech perspective. Everyone's been on mobile for 10 years at least. None of this is affecting harm. It's just affecting the legal market and kicking harm and increased harm abroad. And I think it's a sad indictment of some of the stuff that's been brought in from the people that have championed it, to be honest.
Yeah, and I saw your tweet as well, AK, there about that story down in Australia. It was quite interesting as well. Do you want to just bring that in briefly? The tobacco giant.
Yeah, I can't remember the name of them exactly. Is it British American Tobacco?
Like
They're
that, yeah.
just withdrawing from Australia, just from a tax perspective, just too much tax, not enough margin in it, just pulling out. And they're basically saying in Australia now, you've basically given the cigarette market to the black market. Essentially, it's with the withdrawal, that'll essentially mean the majority of cigarettes are just black market cigarettes. Um, I've referenced Belgium previously. Used to be the split used to be 85% legal from a gambling perspective, 15% black. The ratio literally flipped to 85% black, 15% legal as people withdrew. We've mentioned black market bookmakers buying casino operators, like literally controlling more and more of the supply chains. Um, we've seen it in the Netherlands, the amount of people withdrawing from the Netherlands. We've seen it in the UK. It's people handing in licenses left, right, and centre at the moment in the UK prior to taxes going up on the 1st of April and then going up further again next year. Um, yeah, I don't know. What's the end game here? The end game is just a very, very small legal market, I think, and the majority of the business conducted on the black market, unless there's some meteoric change in policy, because everything that's been done isn't affecting gambling harm numbers. Like, there's nobody can tell anybody that gambling harm numbers are going down. Um, People are going to gamble. And most of it is being kicked abroad, in my opinion.
Mm.
Okay, lads, we'll leave that there. We'll do the next point of discussion is the all in the race. This is the data experiences ambition behind British racing's diversity, equity, and inclusion news strategy. All in the race, British racing's first overarching diversity, equity, and inclusion strategy was launched on Thursday with the ambition of improving access and opportunities for a greater number of people in and around the sport. The strategy states that it is a call to action and an invitation to unite and build a future where everyone feels they belong, with the ultimate goal of strengthening the position of the industry. All in the race is the culmination of work conducted by the Diversity in Racing Steering Group, interviews and focus groups with people from a range of backgrounds and learnings from other sports. British racing has faced criticism for the time taken to produce a strategy, given the DRSG, that's the Diversity in Racing Steering Group, was established in 2017. Tony suggested we could have use this point of discussion with a couple of questions last week on the matter. But how do you feel like this has been received?
Uh, I haven't heard much talk about it apart from the release. I mean, I added in that line, that last line. I mean, we talk the initial group was started in 2017, and this is an offshoot of that in 2026. Um, Presumably an admittance that nothing's been done in the last 9 years or so that I can think of. I'm sure there have been individual battles won, etc. But it just seems absolutely bizarre that it's we've got another group replacing a group that hasn't really appeared to have done much in the last 9 years. Of course, all the intentions are well intentioned, but until we can actually see some tangible evidence of these kind of like groups working, then I'm not so sure. I think Tony Carroll was on Luck on Sunday yesterday, and he just said he's got 30 staff. He said they're all white. He's 25 of the 30 a female. Uh, Racing has got a problem, as you know, that question last week, about Cheltenham, just predominantly white, if not exclusively white. So I'm sure there's some good work to be done in this area. But if these kind of groups been going on since 2017, just what has been done in the last 9 years?
Yeah. We'll move it on, lads. Are you okay? And AK Harry, do you want to come in on any of that or?
Nope.
No, yeah, I'd say so. Yeah, you just want a quality of opportunity, don't you? Not a quality of outcome. I think it's let people do what they want, essentially, no matter what. Well, where they come from.
Um, the next point might be a readout job, but I'll offer it up to you at the end, lads. This is the latest on the Phoenix Thoroughbreds story. So sentencing documents. So this is again written by Peter Scargill all over this for the Racing Post. So sentencing documents for Amir Abdulaziz Salman, the founder and chief executive of Phoenix Thoroughbreds, were unsealed in the US last week, laying out in detail the circumstances that led to his imprisonment last summer for conspiracy to commit money laundering for OneCoin, a cryptocurrency Ponzi scheme which scammed global victims out of at least $4 billion. The rise and fall of Abdulaziz and Phoenix Thoroughbreds, which took the racing world by storm in 2017 by spending millions on bloodstock with the ambition of challenging the likes of Dolphin Kumar and Juddmonte, has been investigated and reported on by the Racing Post extensively.
Mm.
And there's more detail on the story if you want to just check out the Racing Post and
The,
Peter's
the,
piece there.
there's I think we said it at the time, but there's a BBC Sounds podcast called The Missing Crypto Queen, which is all about one coin, and it's very, very good. It's about a 10 part. It's definitely worth listening to if you care to learn about the scumbags behind that.
Yeah, just to highlight again, Peter Scargill's uh, he's covered this story from the start to the end, so
Yeah.
very much worth
Fair play to him as well. Does he get mentioned in any Racing Journalist of the Year awards and stuff like that? Because digging into this stuff is I'd say is a fairly thankless task, and he's the only one bloody doing it anyway, so fair play to him.
No, he's no, he's very good on those kind of stories.
There you go. Tip of the cap to Peter Scargill there. We'll deal with three Aussie stories, Aussie betting stories here. So trainer John O'Shea has launched an appeal against a 4 month disqualification for improper conduct towards racing New South Wales veterinarians at Rose Hill. O'Shea's penalty will be deferred for 7 days and start on March 24th. However, in that time, he's not allowed to start any horses. Thus, the need for an interim license. O'Shea pleaded guilty to three charges of improper conduct in the swab area of Rosehill Racecourse after the unbeaten Bevs 9 was scratched on the vet's advice February 21st. But he repeatedly denied overstepping the mark in his dealings with the two vets in the incident, which was in the view of other participants and officials. Anyone want to jump in there? Harry, did you catch this story at all?
Ronan, I'm going to confess I wasn't listening to that because I just seen an email come in that I had to deal with.
Basically,
Say
it
it
sounds like
again.
a trainer. It sounds like a trainer just launched into a couple of vets and got 4 months for his troubles. So it must have been quite fruity language, you'd have thought.
Yeah, yeah. It sounds it. The approach to language is never particularly easy. To a bad language and bad behavior is never particularly easy to guess what's going to happen because it isn't applied equally across the boards. I mean, listening to the story earlier about the exchange of crosswords at that start with Nico de Boinville, that could easily have in a different context. That could easily have ended up with charges under the code of conduct. I acted for a jockey a while back who got done at Gloria's Goodwood meeting for the use of essentially bad language in front. And I think the reason was that they'd taken a busload of dignitaries down to the start, and the dignitaries had to listen to bad language from jockeys, and none of the dignitaries to have heard it or complained. But anyway, I think he got 2 days for that.
You're not the first, Harry, not to listen to me. And I said
No,
that
I
reminded me. That reminded
basically
me
unless
last week. It reminded me last
basically
week when I was
unless
coming home from work and telling the missus about my days punting at Cheltenham, and she's, oh, sorry, I wasn't listening there. What were you saying, please?
don't take it personally, Ron. I'm getting to that age where I'm only listening if I'm speaking, basically.
Okay, I'll do another Aussie story here. So, a $5,000 limit on unreported bets as Austrac turns up the heat on money laundering. Australian punters who wish to bet cash amounts of $5,000 or more in venues or on track will now be required to produce photo identification as new anti-money laundering laws come into effect at the end of March. The limit on unreported cash transactions in pubs, clubs, and agencies and on racecourses around Australia would be lowered to $5,000 as Austrac enforces tighter restrictions after its chief executive warned of the significant money laundering risks of cash betting. Tabcorp recently issued a directive to all its venues that, effective from March 31st, its large transaction threshold will be reduced from $10,000 to $5,000. So that means photo identification required for cash bettors who transact $5,000 or more. AK, do you want to jump in here?
I think the first reply that I saw to this tweet was on the story was a guy saying my average bet is going to become 4,990.
Yeah, I saw that.
I think this is half the problem. Like I think again, well-intentioned stuff. We have it in Ireland. There's stuff in England. We have it in Ireland in the betting shops that the betting shops in Ireland are meant to monitor as of the last while number of years any transaction of $200 and above, which means that you'll see the differences in the SSBT self-service betting terminal limits in the UK are much higher than they are in Ireland. You can basically have 190 quid per bet slip in Ireland, and in reality that's fine, but in reality that just involves more pieces of paper being printed. To be honest with you, it's very difficult to be capturing that every single thing. There's a betting shop near me that's got I'd say it's got 25 SSB terminals in it, and you can have 190 quid on every one of them, and you can the majority of them you can press the button 190 quid multiple times as well. It's it's the what do they call it? Not the line of best fit, but the path of least resistance. Customers will find it. Um, yeah, nothing much more to say on that. But bookmakers will be compliant, and intrepid punters will probably find a way around that compliance, I'd imagine.
Would. You would imagine, yes. Harry, I'm giving you fair warning here. I'm going to
Please,
come to
please.
you to this for this one, though. There might not be more to add on it, but five Victorian stables have been fined at the end of a long-running Victorian Racing Tribunal saga relating to the presence of a breast cancer drug in post-urine samples. So trainers Smiley Chan, Julius Sandu, and the training duo Amy and Ash Yargi were all fined $4,000 and $2,000, of which was suspended for 12 months after pleading guilty to presenting horses to race with the drug formastane in their systems in 2023. Father and son duo of Mark and Levi Kavanagh and Warrnambool horseman Simon Wild received $6,000 fines, with half suspended for 12 months for the same offence. The Kavanaghs and Wild received their higher penalties as they had previous positive swab fines on the respective records. Did you catch this story? Read
I
this, Ari?
I saw it insofar as what you've just said. I just remain of the view that I'm very glad that I'm not a trainer in charge of a yard trying to keep human used substances out of cross contamination from horses. I think it's a really difficult job. It is understandably taken very seriously by the authorities, but I think what is sometimes ignored is how difficult it is, particularly for smaller yards. I think I've said before, the number of yards in this country you can still just walk into if you're looking for someone is astonishing. I imagine it's the same in Ireland. And again, I think sometimes it's one of those areas of the rules not necessarily meeting the reality of the situation. That said, it doesn't happen terribly often, these kind of things, and so they obviously are working to an extent. I've gone on about it before. I don't like the strict liability nature of these, and I don't like that. Basically, if someone forces, if someone under our rules, if someone comes to your yard with a gun, ties you up in a chair and injects your horse in front of you, you're guilty of an offence as the trainer. And I just think you might not get a penalty, but you still got a finding against you. Racing, the BHA will say, well, that's they've taken that from other sports. To which my response is always, if other sports jumped off a cliff, etc. Anyway, there we go.
Um, okay, I'll just read out this second last story, guys. So this is the Robert Hennigan Gerard Norris story. So the High Court asked to restrain racing tipster from publishing allegedly defamatory online articles. A businessman is seeking a High Court injunction restraining a racing tipster from continuing to post allegedly defamatory online articles about him. We're not going to comment this now, as I said, lads, but potentially will when we have more information in the public domain. And our final story is a classic winning owner ordered to pay £840,000 in gambling debts. Harry's going to step aside on this one involved in the case, so I'll leave this just to AK and Tony. Just give you the background here, lads, and bring you in. So, classic winning owner Alan Spence must pay gambling debts totaling more than £840,000 after a judge rejected his argument that the sums were unenforceable due to them being placed with an illegal bookmaker. Stuart Isaacs KC, sitting as a judge, said the case provides a glimpse into the world of unlicensed betting, which involved frequent deception of each other and of third parties, which at the time neither party seems to have considered was either legally or even morally wrong. Spence, aged 78, is best known in racing as the owner of Jukebox Jury, who won the 2011 Irish St. Leger, and Profitable, who's a Royal Ascot winner. And he's also president of the Racehorse Owners Association and Chelsea Football Club. Do you want to come in here first, AK?
Yeah, I think it was interesting. Interesting for a number of reasons. One of which, again, don't want to be quite too, don't want to talk too much about the specifics, but it appears that there was an acknowledgement of unlicensed bookmaking and the debt still being enforceable, which is quite interesting. Might be interesting to various stakeholders in this industry, regulators as well. That's an interesting development. What is also interesting, I think, is that given the sum of £840,000 sterling being the judgment owed, I think you can probably, given I think the sport in question here that was being bet heavily on is kind of a two-way, maybe a two-way market. I think you can probably extrapolate. Like obviously, we don't know the state, we don't know the actual turnover involved. We don't know the win ratio. We don't know various things. All we know is that 840 grand number. But given a two-way market, you can probably sim out. You can probably sim out turnover in and around between 7 and 10 million, I'd imagine here. Um, and this is just one individual that was allegedly meeting somebody in the car park to send bets. I think that was found unfounded or untrue or whatever the word is. Um, for me, it just shows you the scale of some of the stuff that's going on outside of the regulated market, essentially, in this country. Um, and I think it looks very, very poor on Alan Spence from what we've read for a number of reasons. Um, for me, the biggest reason being not honouring what you say you're going to honour, but for other reasons as well.
Yeah, I mean, I read the article, and I must say it sounds very, very involved. Um, I wouldn't profess to know the rights or wrongs here. I mean, Anthony will probably be better placed as he's just suggested, but the idea that Alan Spence has been instructed to pay a black market bookmaker money, does that open up a whole can of worms or
I think the whole thing's probably quite unsatisfactory.
I
Some
mean,
of
this
the
all kind of like debt's enforceable or not enforceable by law. I mean, if black market bookmakers have now got a kind of like a test case to say, if you have a bet with a black market bookmaker, they're not legally obliged to pay you, but you are legally obliged to pay them. It just seems a bit of a mess, doesn't it? From this as a test case, no? Like I said,
yeah,
I don't know.
again, yeah, not fully qualified on where that sits me personally, but it, it it reads very, very poor from an Alan Spence perspective, which is I can probably comment on given like it's mad that you're saying like he seems to have invented or the court has found that he's invented various stories around meeting a fictitious person in a car park. Oh, this is what the court's found, is my understanding. Um, and then he's also said he's under financial difficulty and his creditors are accepting whatever it was, 28p in the pound or 26p in the pound or something like that, and tried to sell at a lower amount. And I think the court found all of those scenarios to be untrue. Um, and then you just talk about the position and the sport as well of Alan Spence is probably it's probably not a great look for him, I'd imagine.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a fair point, Tony, though, that you make. How does it all stand up, really? But we'll see if that has ramifications for the future of the illegal market, I guess. We're going to leave the questions this week, lads. We're a bit tight for time, but thanks for those who send it in questions, and perhaps we can get to them next week. So I'll say the usual. If you are having a bet this week and want to check out our AK Bets Big Prices tabs, please do. Appreciate it's a quiet sporting week, but obviously international's back. Bigger week in Ireland than it is in England, I'd say, on Thursday night. Ireland off to the Czech Republic, so hopefully we can get a big
Nine
result
to
out
two
there.
Ireland to qualify for the World Cup role. Best price in the industry. Can't happen, can it? Can't see it.
My only wish for the sporting week is that I hope the Dubai Clerk of the Course has watered over the weekend all that day, so I can actually get stuck into him. That'll be my only interest in the Dubai World Cup if the clerk is overwatered before torrential thunderstorms. Make my
What's
week.
funny, yeah, sorry, Tony, going back to the Ireland match. I was listening to Off the Ball, is a big sports show over here on News Talk, and the guy Timmy Clancy was on it. He's from Trim here. He's used to be a footballer up in Scotland, and he's managed a few League of Ireland teams. But he was panelist on the day, and he asked the panel, "Would you take penalties?" On Thursday night, would if you right now if I offered you penalties, and it was like 50-50 from the panel. And when you're betting orientated, that's the first thing that comes into your mind. And I was there. You do realize Ireland are like about 6-4 underdogs to go through here. We 100% take penalties now. That the lads are like, oh no, I think we have a good chance and all this, and you're kind of going,
Yeah.
lads, we'd 100% take penalties.
Just lads who don't understand probability, unfortunately. Yeah, they'll be lumping into that 9 to 2 surely to qualify for the World Cup or two.
I know, but like the talk in Ireland is like there was a show on RTE, go I think his name's David Goldstein come back on. They had a big talking point about whether the pubs should open for the World Cup. All the bad times. Let's we're like a 16% chance to actually get there, and it's the talk as if we're the pub talk has already began already. So I think we're getting a bit ahead of ourselves now, to be honest. But hopefully get a result on Thursday night. But all left to say is thanks to the lads for their contributions. Thanks for the questions that we didn't get to, but we maybe get to them next week. And thank you for listening. And we'll talk to you again this time next week. Cheers.